Hey everybody, and thanks again for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and much appreciated. So, subscribe if you haven't. Thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down if you don't like it. But comment, suggestions, ideas, experiences. Let me know. I love the learning and the dialogue. So, I wanted to kind of put some stuff out there about tuning into non-physical energy. So, remember, no matter what it's called, you can call it spiritual or psychic gifts or astral travel, whatever you want to call it, communication, receiving, sending. It really boils down to a couple simple things. And I wanted to kind of contextualize this. And I kind of realized this over the past few years as I've been learning and studying it and experiencing and experimenting with it. But remember, everything has a duality, plain and simple. So there's physical and non-physical. Now, when it comes to non-physical energy, we do use our non-physical senses on a day-to-day basis, as far as like thinking, for example. When we think, we hear our thoughts not with our physical ears, but with our non-physical ears, if you will. So even our senses have a non-physical duality. And that's how we store information and memories. We can conjure up the smell of something or the sight of something. And we have memories, and these experiences and memories and our identity and everything is what identifies us. Our knowledge is what our soul is. That's our collection of these things. So now we can't on any given day, if I were to like crack my knuckles next to someone on the bus, if I'm sitting right next to them, they'll hear it. They'll hear it physically. But if I'm thinking, or if I'm replaying a song really loud in my head, they won't hear it, which is interesting, right? It's just that these non-physical frequencies, that doesn't make sense to me. It's like, how are we so used to hearing our own thoughts? Sometimes we'll yell in our own heads, or like I was saying, just play our favorite song really loud in our own heads, but we don't hear this on a day-to-day basis, so it's not like, if we could, it's kind of funny. It'd be so noisy, but we just don't exercise those faculties enough. Now, it's kind of natural when we hear things physically. We just react and we hear and we record and we remember. So, but it's stored non-physically. And I always thought this difference was fascinating, because if I could hear my own thoughts, why can't I hear others? And then it just becomes, some people can, and they're born with it, just like any skill. Some people have to develop it. I've been having to develop it, and it's not easy. So even though these things are possible, it's something that you're either born with or you have to train for, plain and simple. Another duality: you have it or you don't. And if you don't, you can obtain it. That's the cool part. But if you do have that natural ability, another duality, you're either good at it or you're bad at it. And of course, you can always enhance the bad, make yourself better at it. So one interesting example is, well, the thoughts, of course. But say you're just talking with your friend, and then you picture like the whole room pitch black and you can't even see them. And then you ask them, do you notice that it's dark in here? They're like, no, the lights are still on. You're like, okay, well, use your non-physical eyes. Can you still see what I'm creating? And they're like, no. And then same thing if they were to like create a really bright white light, and they asked you, well, do you see what I'm doing? And they're like, no, what are you doing? They're like, well, I'm making it so bright in here, I can't even see you. And you're like, no, I can't see that. I'm just seeing like the darkness that I'm projecting. So these are two simple examples of when you're creating these things using the power of your mind, it's real, because you see it and it's outside your head, and you're experiencing this and creating this non-physical experience or reality around you. But that doesn't mean everyone else can see it too. Same thing like if you're on a bus, like a city bus, and you just picture it pitch black in there, people aren't just going to be like, what? Like, what happened? Well, some people that are sensitive to that sort of thing may notice that something is occurring, but they still have to tune into your frequency. Like, for example, if I were projecting that darkness, I don't know what the intensity is or what the color actually is on a numerical level. And remember, numbers can expand outwards. They can get as big forever. That's the nature of infinity. A number can expand forever. So you can really have an infinite number of frequencies in the greater direction. And remember that occurs small too. There's that duality. So if you were to take the space in between your hands, for example, and cut it in half, 0.5, and then 0.25, and then 0.06, whatever it is, and then keep doing that, you will never reach zero. If you think about it, that's crazy. So infinity works smaller and bigger. Now, all that considered, there are numerical qualities to colors and sound and that kind of thing. So when I'm projecting, for example, I'm like, okay, I'm making the whole room dark, but I'm using the color black, frequency 1.555, intensity 3.444. And they're like, oh, okay, now I can see it because I tuned into that, like dialing into it like a radio station. But they're like, okay, now I changed the intensity to 1.56, maybe imperceptible without proper, scientific equipment. And then all of a sudden the person's like, oh, shut off, because their psychic abilities are only tuned into that one numerical frequency. The point is, like, there's an infinite amount of qualities to, like, when you're trying to see something or receive a message when using, like, psychic gifts. And I just thought that was interesting, how we can create these things and no one else notices them. But I'm starting to more and more. And I'm becoming aware of my own database. Remember, this information is stored in us, but it's fluid. So just like when we think about something and it's under our own conscious control, when we're thinking about something, what are we doing? We're conjuring up data so we can think something through. Sometimes this database can be on autopilot. It's very interesting to step back and watch and see what it does. Like, watch your own thoughts, for example. Sometimes we think we are commanding and controlling them at all times, but sometimes it's just the pattern that's there, and we're just used to it. And what I mean by that, to kind of separate that difference, is I've come to be able to actually talk to myself, literally. And it sounds just like me. It's really funny. I don't hear my own voice like I do out loud, but it's that very quiet, almost silent voice you hear in your head. That's how I hear it anyways, like no depth or no tone or intonation or inflection or anything like that, but just, very quiet. It's in an American accent, of course, but right in the center of my head. So sometimes I'll talk with myself, and it's just like, if someone were to ask you, how are you doing? You're like, how am I doing? You can literally talk to yourself that way, and as if you're talking to yourself. Like, I'll be like, hey, how's it going today? And then, the voice in my head's like, hey, I don't know, not too bad. How are you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, you are me. Like, what are you talking about? And so, but it's like talking to just a set of data, and it can respond any which way. And what I mean, it sounds like me. Of course, it uses the same vocabulary. And when it gets mad, it sounds like I do when it gets mad. Or when I'm happy or in a good mood, it uses those types of words, because that's who I am. So when I'm talking to myself, you can literally hear your own mind respond once you train to do that. I'm not going to lie, though, it's maddening, by the way, because sometimes that's all I hear. And it's frustrating to me, because if I could just hear my own database chattering nonstop, like everywhere I look, oh, well, hey, look at that. I'm like I used to be able to observe things silently. Well, at least as far as I could tell before. Maybe this chattering was going on forever, and I've only become more open to hearing that, which I think is true, I'm afraid. But it could drive me crazy if I don't learn to tune it out. Like, I'll just be sitting here and I'll look at the sky. Well, the sky is blue. Wow, it's hot. I'm like, look at that tree. Look at that car. But I'm not thinking that. These observations are being recorded, and I'm like, oh, Jesus. It's like sometimes, like, I hear it, and before I could just like look around peacefully, and it's like I have to learn to regain silence again. It's something I didn't expect, but it's interesting. But it's fun to chat with myself, and I think it's helped me as I become aware of a new dimension or element of non-physical sound to communicate with. It's been helping me communicate more with the spiritual realms. For example, and what I usually do is I'll just like project a voice outside my head, until I can hear it. I'll be like, hello, are you there? Hello, is anybody there? Hello, is anybody there? And then I ask for a response in the same area, and I ask for a response from like right to left if I hear the words. So I don't hear it like sometimes when someone's speaking to me and they're standing. If I could, it'd be great because I could hear a lot more accurately and consistently. But so like I'll hear words like, for example, it'll be like, hello, is anybody there? And then I space it out and I'll be like, can you respond in that manner? And then I'll try to listen from right to left. I'll be like, yes, hello, how are you, my friend? Is usually what I hear or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not just like one focal point, like a voice, like talking, all the words coming from the same area, as if there was a face and a mouth there. So anyways, I've been trying to map this experience of talking to myself in my head to hearing the voices outside my head. So, talking to the voices in my head and outside my head. So, it's crazy stuff. And of course, now there's the whole element of aliens, and you could talk to them this way. And it's so funny because you can talk to them anywhere and at all times as well, because they have mastered telepathy. They have technology for this sort of thing. So I used to go outside and shout outside my head as loud as I can to get someone's attention from the afterlife, and then realize you don't have to do that. And that's what I do with the aliens now, sometimes for fun. But, the point is non-physical communication. There's a variety of ways. There's infinite frequencies, but I think that's overcomplicating. But it's the truth. It's really just a matter of hearing. And there's an infinite amount of frequencies, though, that you can hear on. So as I focus on kind of practicing inside my head, I use that same technique outside my head, and that's how I've been trying to be able to hear and separate from the madness, because there's noises and sound and visions everywhere, and it's so hard sometimes, for me anyways, to tune into any level of clarity or consistency or accuracy. Sometimes it is, but it's just not all the time for me. In other words, there's pictures carry your soul, by the way. So, and of course, people in line at the grocery store. So, there's just energy happening everywhere, and it emanates off people, and it's just like spinning and ricocheting and combining and separating, and there's just like this huge sea of energy at all times that's just doing all sorts of things, and sometimes you tune into it and sometimes you don't. Anyways, I just wanted to share the nature of this sort of thing and my experience with it, just to put that out there. And maybe see what you guys have experienced or what your thoughts are or that kind of thing. So here's a funny thought too, like, because if you're at the magazine aisle at the store and you see a picture of a celebrity on the cover and you just scream, hey, as loud as you can into their ear, on the picture, their soul will react. And and they'll be like, quit shouting, or, whatever. They'll say it in a British accent if it's a British person or whatever. It's fun to kind of toy with this energy sometimes. But it's there's just an ocean of infinite energy around us, and it's really, on one hand, it's very simple to, I know this doesn't make sense, but it's very simple to begin to experience it, even as a slight feeling or a sound. But it can just go infinitely in every which way sometimes, and so I think a simple approach is good, but it's good to understand the infinite nature of the complexity as well, without trying to get in the way of your own accuracy and practice, for me anyways. So, thanks again for watching. Much appreciated. Everyone take care, and we'll see you later.